It's Zach Edey with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Joining me is Kraig Bowers from underneath Gainbridge Fieldhouse after Purdue beats number one ranked Arizona 92-84, a game that Purdue, the first few minutes, got off to a slow start, dominated the rest of the first half, and then it was a little touch and go in the second half for a bit. But at the end of the day, Purdue never lets the lead fully slip. They keep it, I believe it was 4 was the closest Arizona ever got it in the second half, and they end up winning by 8, 92-84 over number one in the country in a packed Gainbridge. That was I didn't quite know what the turnout would be. I knew it would be pretty full. I did not expect it to be like even the standing room only way up top, like that was packed too. It was a full crowd, probably 80% Purdue fans. They were loud. It was a good game overall. Kraig, throw it to you. Just initial takeaways from this game, from the crowd, from just anything in general.
Well, I'll tell you what. Between this game and the Alabama game, Purdue's been part of, I would say, the two most fun games. Just as a basketball fan, if you're a casual fan just watching college basketball, if they could find this one on Peacock, this last two have just been so enjoyable to watch. Just an exciting game, extremely high level shot making on both sides of the ball. And man, if you don't like the product that you just saw on the court today, then I don't know what to tell you as a basketball fan, because that first half especially was probably the best basketball I'd seen all year, regardless of what team was playing. And I know I have a little bias here, but it was just incredible. And, I think I told you at halftime, Arizona was shooting 57% from the field and 57% from the field, 75% from three, and they were down 11. Like that's just incredible offense on both sides of the ball. Purdue ran into a little bit of trouble when they hit that zone. I'm sure we'll talk about that later on. But my one big takeaway, Joe Jackson, is death to the Wilson Evo ball curse. It is officially dead and in the ground. I don't ever want to hear about it anymore. We talk about it often, have in the past, but it's time to just bury that thing in the ground.
Yeah, Purdue goes 10-24 from three, 42%. A lot of that was Braden Fletch, although actually the only other guy to hit a three was Jones, but only Jones, Gillis, and First even took a three. Gillis and First both 0 for 1, Jones 1 for 6, Fletch 5 for 9 from 3, and Braden 4 for 7. Let's start in that first half because Purdue. You want to start with the first half, or do you want to start with the very closing stretch?
Let's start with the first half.
Yeah. So first half, Purdue gets off to a little bit of a slow start. Keyshawn Johnson for Arizona, very good player. He gets some buckets to go. Purdue just kind of came out a little bit flat, I think. And then I don't know exactly when it was, but 5-10 minutes into the first half, Fletcher Loyer just took over. He hit 4 threes, I believe, in the first half. Yeah, 4 for 6 from 3, 7 of 11 overall, 18 points and 4 steals, which is even the more surprising thing probably. He had 4 steals, and that's where, Loyer, I think we're all kind of in agreement, Loyer isn't the best one-on-one defender, but he was in the right spot every single time in the first half on pick and rolls. Arizona adjusted in the second half, and we're going to talk about that once we kind of get into that, but he was just in the right place at the right time always. It was high pick and roll, and now Edey's up in his drop coverage. Braden or Lance, whoever it is coming around the screen, and Fletch is the one that has to tag the roll, and he got 2 or 3 steals off of that purely. And now he's coming down, knocking down threes, letting just absolutely electric, getting the crowd into it. It was something to watch. 18 points, and then Braden has 14. Like that's insane from the backcourt, the sophomore backcourt. This is kind of what Purdue fans I think were hoping for, and It came through in bunches in that first half. It was really good. And there's a bunch of other stuff we want to get into on that half, but we'll start with those two for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, look, when you have the National Player of the Year and finishes with what felt like not an incredible game for Zach, he still finishes with 22-9, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of a ho-hum 22-9 out there today. But when you have the reigning National Player of the Year, who's the front runner for National Player of the Year yet again this year, and you have two guards that are going to get you 25 plus, I just don't know how you beat a team like that. And Arizona was in it down the stretch. That's what's incredible. I tweeted that out with like 15 minutes to go, or when we were up like 15 points in the game, and Arizona starts creeping back. And I thought, well, shoot, maybe they're going to be the one who figures out a way to do that. But they shot incredible on the offensive side of the ball as well. So a lot of people have brought up the fact that we really haven't seen Fletch and Smith go off in the same game yet this year, and really rarely over a 2-year period. It seems like it's either a Smith game or it's a Fletcher game in terms of them both just really being on and feeling it from an offensive standpoint. And this feels like, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but this feels like the first game that they both just were on a heater. And if they're going to both give you 20 plus and you've got Zach Edey sitting under the basket, this team is going to be incredibly tough for anyone to beat that they come into contact with.
First half, 4 assists, which some of them were hand off to Loyer. Yeah. I thought he was in the first half, he was much better, kind of making decisions. They got fit in the second half. But just, I cleaned my nose as a factor too. The first 8 minutes, I thought Braden was as a kind of executive. Like he hasn't. Arizona was in their drop coverage, right? So the first play of the game, Braden gets this ball. Drop coverage for 6. Come off the screen.
Hey, Joe, you don't have any audio coming in.
Oh, tough.
Yeah, it took me a second because you're sitting right beside me. So
yeah,
you got no audio coming in.
That's good.
They just saw a lot of mouth flapping.
I was rambling, so we're good now, right? I think we're good. You can hear me.
We're good.
All right, cool. I was saying from the first 8 minutes, I thought Braden was just rushed. Like, I don't think he settled into the game at first. The very first play, he hits that pull up against the drop coverage from Ballo, which drop coverage is kind of where when they come off the screen, the big's a couple steps below where the screen's at. And I think that kind of almost excited him a bit of like, that's what drop coverage is, what Braden can just eat up. Like, he can just pick it apart. And I think it just caused him to be just a little too rushed at first. Just trying to force, like, knowing he has stuff there, but trying to force it a bit. And then he calmed down. And part of it, I think, was Loyer getting going too. It took some of the pressure off Braden to have to create everything. Loyer can get going both in transition, in the half court, come off screens. They can run their Chicago action for him, whatever it is. And now that takes some of the pressure off him. And then Braden really settled in. And when you see Braden get to his pull up consistently, confidently, he isn't forcing, like, that's when you know that you're in trouble if you're facing them. Like, it was just really, really good, I thought, after the first 8 minutes for Purdue, for Braden specifically, to really just settle in and kind of commanded the offense from there. I don't know what else there is to say about Loyer. Like, he was just that dude. Like, it's simple analysis, but he was literally just that dude. And I don't know if I have anything else to say on that first half from him.
Yeah, and he was just completely in his bag. I mean, he was banging 3-pointers. He was getting to I guess as close as Loyer gets to the rim, but he was getting layups where he's shooting that little 3 or 4 footer bank shot. He shot a couple of mid ranges. But again, the most impressive thing is what he did defensively. With those 4 steals, he drew 2 offensive fouls, and he just disrupted things from a defensive standpoint. I talked to you about this, but as we were leading up to this game, hearing people say that he wouldn't be able to guard Larson, and I mean, Larson got some of his in this particular game, but I just didn't see that as a matchup that was like going to cook Fletcher. To me, he's not the type of player that has the skill to really break Fletcher down off the dribble or anything like that. So I thought Fletcher was going to be fine from a defensive standpoint. I didn't know he was going to have 4 steals in the first half and draw 2 offensive fouls. That was just an incredible effort by him. And to be fair, he's been getting called out. kind of got some questions from local media. He's and the people covering the Big Ten and the people covering nationally been getting called out for that defensively. So I think it says a lot about him just in terms of how he stepped up today on that end of the floor, because if he wasn't, I mean, Zona was scoring at will for a while, even though Purdue was scoring at an even faster rate. And if he wasn't, he probably wasn't going to be on the floor. We talked about leading up to this, that this might be a Heidi game from a defensive standpoint, that it might be a Colvin game if they need some offense and also just a little bit different athleticism defensively. And he answered the bell. And just, I think those two guys combined got, 8 minutes today? So, yeah, 10 minutes today. So I think Fletcher just really answered the bell and just put that question to rest for this particular game of, I'm staying in this game, not just because he was racking up 27 points, but because of what he was doing on the defensive end as well.
Yeah, Michael Van Meter says Loyer has had a great couple games. I just want him to be more consistent. Obviously, everybody wants that. I think one of the good things with Purdue right now is I had to make sure my mic wasn't muted. I think I'm good.
You're good.
Yeah. I think one of the good things with Purdue right now is on any given night, they have up to 4 options that they can put at that wing spot. We assume, Braden's obviously, he's going to play basically 40 minutes a game. Lance Jones is assumed to be out there mainly because of what he can do defensively. And then it's that final spot on the perimeter, right? And you can have Loyer, Heidi, Colvin, or even Morton. Morton's obviously more pure defense. Loyer is pure offense, and their upside with Heidi and Colvin is both, although Heidi's probably been more of the defensive end, Colvin's been more of the offensive end so far. But yeah, it's who Loyer is. He's going to have some big games. Some of the matchups are probably not going to be his night, and it's going to be a Heidi or Colvin or whoever night, and that's just how this team's going to roll, I think. It goes back to, I think I said this on the Tennessee game, is just can't not, especially these guys on the perimeter, for that third wing spot. You can be critical, obviously, of players if they have a bad game. Not saying that, but don't give up on a guy just because of one bad game, because especially like Fletcher Loyer, he can just have nights like this, and you want that, and you want him to be confident and stay confident, and that's going to come from minutes. Do we want to stick with Loyer? Because I do have some defensive stuff in the second half. It kind of is more big picture, or do we want to kind of stay chronological? Okay, so sticking with Loyer in the second half. Let's see. Larson ended up the game with 10 points, and he had 6 assists. And what they were doing a ton is they would just have Larson on the weak side wing, and then Ballo, or generally Ballo, he would come to the top of the key and then just get a handoff to Larson. Now Larson's coming off the wing, getting downhill, and what Purdue wasn't doing early was tagging the roll, and so now Loyer wasn't getting through screens well in the second half. He really wasn't. And now Larson either has a floater or a lob. I think late in the second half, the last 5 minutes, when things kind of calmed down for Purdue, 2 things happened. One, Loyer just fought through better. It's simple as that. He just fought through better. And then also Purdue provided much more weak side help. And so it's called tagging the roll, where the weak side guy, I wish I had my board, weak side guy, whoever's in the weak side corner, he comes over and essentially tags whoever's rolling, like the game of tag. So he steps in the way so the lob isn't there. What that gives up is that weak side corner kick. And if there's one play, I think with 3 minutes left, that Larson's off this handoff, gets downhill, he skips it to Love. Love kind of takes Morton on the closeout, gets a little floater. Purdue's fine with that little floater over a lob or a Larson layup. And so I think there was the stretch that Loyer did struggle, but I think even that he overcame a bit, and that's towards the end when it really, really mattered the most. And I was just impressed with that in general. The last 5 minutes in general, we'll get to it, I know, but you let up the big lead, and Purdue stayed composed, and they were able to figure things out.
Yeah, for sure. And, even talking about Fletcher in that spot from a defensive standpoint, when Cam came in on those first minutes, and again, when he came back in the second half, me and you both commented immediately about how well he was getting through screens and how well he was doing defensively out there. Cam could have played in this game and been just fine, but when Fletcher's on a heater, Fletcher's going to eat those minutes for sure. We've gotten several questions about where Braggs is. He is here with us today. All 3 of us got credentialed kind of last minute. I know a couple people tried to hit me up coming into this about possibly meeting up or something. We didn't know we were going to end up being here until kind of super last minute for this particular show. And then Greg's right now at the press conference, so he's going to be getting some material for us there. It's really, I think, the second game he's got to come to all year. So Greg's at the press conference. He'll be joining us on a little bit later. What from your standpoint, and I know we're going to get into stats, right? I saw somebody mention only 4 bench points from the bench, but I think it's important that we take that into context over the season, right? We've seen at different times that when we need bench points, for the most part, they've been able to find guys to do that, whether that's Colvin, whether that's Edey. It's not necessarily many of those guys other than when Colvin comes in and hits like 3 threes in 30 seconds or whatever, or TKR working in the post. But for the most part, those guys aren't getting 10, 15 points. But a lot of games we're seeing 4, 5, 6 points from 4 or 5 or 6 of those, or 4 or 5 of those guys coming off the bench at different times. So I think you do get contribution from the bench. And just as importantly, especially from a defensive standpoint, you get a heck of a lot of contribution off that bench as well. But, I thought, yes, looking at kind of percentages, looking at turnovers were matched. Do we want to go into stats? Because I kind of want to start riffing on some of those right now.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I guess one of the big things that sticks out to me as we start to look at this, and I was talking to you like, exactly how did we end up getting that win? Because Arizona did shoot well. They 3-point percentage went way down as the game went on. They only finished at 38%, but that's still good. Purdue shoots 41%, so that's relatively close. Purdue shoots only 2% higher from the field in general, 53.8 to 51.6. Turnovers were exactly the same. Both teams have 13 turnovers. So it's kind of like, where does this game break down? Where are things a little bit different? Arizona shot a little bit better from the line than Purdue shot from the line. I think it really boils down to offensive rebounds. And even though that might not have seemed like it was a huge factor, when you really go through all the stats that are, and compare these two teams in this particular game, Purdue ends up with a 6 total rebound advantage and a 6 offensive rebound advantage. So I think that was obviously a key in some of what happened today out there, just overall in terms of the entire game flow as it works.
Yeah, and the first half offensive rebounds was 7-1 for Purdue, and that's where I felt fine at halftime because obviously Purdue got hot at the end with Loyer and Braden, but it just didn't feel like it was unsustainable. They cooled off maybe a little bit in the second half, whatever, but the turnover, like you said, the offensive rebounding was huge. Purdue was winning the offensive rebounding, and in the first half, they were winning the turnover battle. Those are 2 things. Those are 2 of the 4 main things in basketball, and they were winning both in a game that was pretty even elsewhere. And so that's where it's just little things like that. Having a guy like Zach Edey, TKR had 4 offensive rebounds today in 15 minutes. He wasn't the most used on offense. He has 4 points on 2 of 3 shooting, but here they are. There, the stats up. 4 offensive rebounds, 2 defensive rebounds. Some of them were grown man rebounds, I thought, too. They were just kind of he's going to be super physical down there. And just little things like that. Gillison first off the bench. We're talking about the bench a bit. They have 5 combined assists. Maybe, they aren't shooting. They only took the bench only took 5 shots in total for everybody. It's different things every night. And I think that's just a good thing in general. Like you said, the rebounding's big. A lot of these, like you said, a lot of the other things just kind of are pretty similar. Purdue hits a couple more threes. Arizona hits a couple more free throws. Turnovers are the same. It's a game where when you have 2 of the best teams in the country that are built somewhat similarly in terms of having a good big man, having some good guards. Obviously, they play a bit differently, but it's just the little things that really break it down. So you could call out there, I think, on the offensive rebounding from you. Do we want to hit on Edey? 22 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 turnovers, a block, 2 steals.
Let's talk about him.
A game that it's another one of those. It's like, I don't know if people would say necessarily he had a great game, and then I just read off his stat line, and it's 22, 9 and 5, a block, a steal, a couple bad passes in the second half, 100%. But he missed some. He was 8 for 15 from the field, and it's in that stretch. You called it out too. In that stretch where Purdue kind of went scoreless against the zone for 5 minutes, Edey got good looks. It wasn't looks that Purdue's like, man, I wish Edey wouldn't have taken that. They didn't fall. And maybe that's just going to happen at stretches. It was good to see him because he came out of that after, And after that stretch, it wasn't pretty, but he did score 8 straight for Purdue in the second half. A couple free throws, a putback, I think, and then maybe a post up he did get to go. So maybe it wasn't the most conventional, like, I'm just going to bury you in the post, but he just found different ways, I thought, to still contribute on that end, even with the hook really not falling.
Yeah, and the zone was giving him all kinds of problem. And what's interesting to me is Zach has 3 hook shots, and maybe he's a half step or a step a little bit further out when he took those 3. But if he hits those 3 hook shots, they're coming out of that zone real fast. But he misses those 3, and Purdue really had trouble kind of working around that zone and moving the ball and finding spacing. Couldn't get an open look from 3 for a little while there. When they first showed it, at one point, TKR flashes to the middle, catches a pass, feeds it right back to Loyer. Loyer bangs a 3, and they didn't stick with it that first time they showed it. And then when they went back to it, somebody misses a 3. Zach misses those 3 hook shots in that stretch, and then I think we miss another 3. And then things started to get real tight. It looked like Purdue was really trying to figure out who the go-to guy was, what ball movement was, and I'd love to be in there. I know Braggs gets to do it tonight, but I don't know that Zona's played zone yet this year. And I'm betting on film, or at least doesn't do it consistently. I'm betting that was one of those things that was, I don't want to say spur of the moment, but something that was more specific to Purdue. And I don't know how much prep. I would like to know how much prep they did on it, because I don't know how much film was out there for him to look at.
I have the numbers here. They have not played zone before tonight. Arizona
right.
hasn't.
So like you don't have film to work with the team on, like, what are we going to do in terms, because there's like zones are different and just what they can do, what different teams can do with length and that type of stuff, and exactly how that zone is set up. They're different. And so there's no film to work on. So I understand Purdue struggling a little bit. Like I said, I didn't know early on there that it was so much the zone that was giving him trouble. It's just miss a couple of kind of little hook shots, and if those go down, they're coming out of that zone really quick.
Yeah, I think this comment from Lynn Ream said he missed because he was too far out, and this is in reference to Edey against the zone. I think he was pushed out a little bit. I think the biggest thing is, I'm kind of going to expand on that with, is just that the zone from Arizona did such a good job of pushing Purdue way far out. Like, if you look at a lot of the actions, they're starting their drive like 6 feet behind the 3-point line. And so now because there was so much length in that zone too, with a lot of the Arizona wings in that, now they can all dig in and they can all get their hands on the ball, force some kick. Like, just that's where they force bad passes. They force some kind of strip steals right there, and they got out in transition. I'm interested when I watch back what exactly like Purdue was trying to do, because I think at times it just felt like they were kind of stagnant against the zone. And I understand part of it was like Arizona had a ton of length out there. They really did. And we both tweeted out, like, I don't know why Arizona went back to man towards the end. I assume it's because, like, my only guess is because it was like Boswell and that was back in, and so they weren't as long, and so they just went to man. But like, it's one, if you're an Arizona fan, you're probably just like, why did that happen? Because Purdue, they went to back to man. I think Purdue scored 3 straight possessions, and then the zone they scored like 5 points against, or it probably scored like 9 points against in like 9 minutes or something like that. Just it's going to be something that's interesting. Like, do teams look at this and be like, okay, if we have the length, are we going to try to now zone up Purdue? But like you said, if Edey just knocks down some hooks, are we talking about the zone completely differently? So I think there's a bunch of back and forth, and for a game that, according to my stats, like, they ran it zone on 13 possessions. That's not a big sample size, and Purdue wasn't ready for it whatsoever. Going to be interested to see if teams maybe try to do that going forward with them. But do you have anything else on Edey or the zone? I think we can. I don't really have anything else.
No, I mean, I think Edey played well again, and I think one of the things to me that gave Purdue the most trouble related to that zone was they forced Zach in a couple of turnovers where he was just kind of got rushed and felt like, and then he had that 3-second call too, where he's that clock starts kicking. He's looking for a guy, and that clock starts ticking a little bit in terms of like, I got to get rid of the ball. And just made a couple of bad passes out of that. And there were a couple of other guys who turned the ball over, just trying to make swing passes or whatever, because they, like you said, other teams have tried to zone Purdue this year, but nobody's pushed the guards out that far in terms of where kind of offense was having to be initiated. So I thought it was a heck of a move by Tommy Lloyd from a coaching standpoint. I am just mind blown that he went away from it. I mean, Jones hits that three, and then I think Zach gets a real easy basket right after that. And I don't know if just those two baskets freaked him out, but I'd have been playing the law averages from what he'd seen in the last 7 or 8 minutes at that point.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's something I'm going to look for when I watch this back. Like, was there a specific reason why he went away from it? We kind of hit on Braden, but I don't know if we fully hit on Braden. 26 points, 4 rebounds, only 2 assists and 4 turnovers. And like I said, I think a lot of those, let's see, 2 in the first half, 2 in the second half. And I think both in the first half came pretty early in the game. We can pull up the stats here. 9 of 15 overall, 4 of 7 from 3, 4 of 4 from the line, 3 steals to go along with it. Both he and Loyer, this is one of the most active they've been probably on like off-ball defense all year. Braden, yeah, we're going to take out the zone stretch because that is what it was. But like aside from that, Braden kind of just like it's been 10 or 11 games now, and he had a bad game against Northwestern, and that's probably the only game you're going to say that was like really bad from him. The Tennessee game, he struggled a bit, so maybe that one too. Like he's putting up really good numbers. He is commanding this offense. Purdue now, if they don't want to just force feed Edey in the post, they can get him the ball. Braden can get him the ball and pick and roll, or get it to a shooter like Loyer today, especially when he's hot. There's just a new element to Purdue with what Braden can do, and it's just another game where he's kind of cementing himself as one of the premier point guards really in the country. Like I don't know exactly where he falls, but when you're making a top point guard list in the country, like he's got to be somewhere on the list at this point, just with how he's played.
Oh, no doubt. And I mean, when you look at that stat line all the way across, and obviously there's some games and it's become more and more frequent in terms of when he's really providing a scoring punch. But just beyond that, what he does from an assist standpoint, what he does from a rebounding standpoint, and he's getting better and better on defense. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be a lockdown, one-on-one defender, but his ability to play off ball and get in there. He's got that long wingspan, and he'll get his hand on a lot of balls and get some strips and just disrupt things, force some balls out that then lead to somebody else picking up a steal off of it. I don't know exactly where I would have him. I know where I would have him in the Big Ten. I don't know exactly where I would have him.
Where?
I mean, I think at this point I have him number 1 above Bowie, just because of what he consistently does from an assist and rebounding standpoint as well. If we just want to look at points, I'm fine if that's your gig, and having Bowie over him. But at this point, I think he's the best point guard in the Big Ten, and I think nationally he's got to be considered at least top 10 nationally, maybe top 5. I mean, how many times has he flirted with a triple-double this year? It's just pretty incredible to this point.
Yeah, no, he's been elite, and it's just like he just gets where he wants in pick and roll now, especially against drop coverage, which is what Arizona runs with Ballo and their other big, who I'm forgetting, Krivas. Like that's just going to give space to Smith, and Smith is going to eat it up and get to where he wants. And whether it be a pull up, whether it be, whether it be with a minute and a half left, he comes off the screen and throws a pass between his legs to a rolling Edey. It's maybe Purdue doesn't always want that type of flair in those specific moments, but that's who Braden is. Like that's who he is. And I say with Lance Jones, the Lance Jones experience, like whether you like it or not, like that's what makes Braden go, and that's what makes Braden so great is just the audacity to do stuff like that. And yes, there's a line that maybe he crosses a bit, but at the same time, that's what makes him. That's having that line there is what makes him elite. And just a really, really good game from him especially for like 25 minutes for sure. Couple big threes. I mean, he hit the big 3 too, right? Jones hit a 3 and then Braden hits a 3. Like it's a 4-point game, and it's quickly, I don't know if it was an 8 or a 10-point game at that point, but it breaks it up. It's okay, Purdue has a little bit of chance to breathe, a little bit of chance to relax a bit. And I think that was really, really good. I think I have a comment here from Josh. Says we had 3 players play really good, but everybody else struggled. If you're going off your points, yes. I think I would disagree in general. though. Like I thought Edey provided good defensive minutes. Morden was good, except for when Arizona was zoned, and that was just because Arizona completely ignored him. I thought, Morden, I thought, played solid defense down the stretch. Yes, Love is going to hit a couple. That's who Caleb Love is. He's going to hit some tough shots, but forcing him to take tough shots is the most important thing. I thought Edey did that. Edey did that as well. I already mentioned the TKR. Like I thought he was really, really aggressive on the glass, which was big. So yeah, maybe in terms of pure points, yes, like Lance Jones struggled and nobody else really shot outside of the big three. But I think a lot of players still contributed in positive ways. I don't know.
Yeah, and no, I mean, let's be real. Between Smith, Loyer, and Edey, they score 75 points. Yeah. In all three of those are your two guards. You're gonna feed Zach no matter what, and you have two guards that are on absolute heaters. So quite frankly, if you're taking a shot, it's probably a bad shot just because you have two guys that are on absolute heaters. Like I don't want to see anybody else hunting their shot unless it's wide open or a cut to the rim or something like that, because those dudes are cooking, right? Like it's not like guys shot a really low percentage. They just didn't take a lot of shots. So I don't understand that mindset personally. You get 75 points from three dudes. There's not going to be a lot of other points to go around. And Jones didn't shoot a high percentage early. A couple of those were, end a half and late in shot clock, chucking up a three type of thing situation. But down the stretch, there were certainly some good things that he did. He breaks the press one time and gets it across and makes him pay by feeding it to Loyer, who immediately gets to the rim, scores, gets an and one in that situation. Another time right there towards the end, obviously he hits that big three. One of the things that we've talked about at different times is like, there were times last year where you just needed a dude who's never scared, even if he's 0 of 6 up to that point or whatever it is. And if there's one thing that Lance Jones is not, it's scared. At any point in time, regardless of how many shots he's made up to that point, he lines up, he takes it confident, he drills it. Painter draws up that incredible. We probably need to talk about just that one play for a little bit. Painter draws up that incredible out of this play, out of the sideline, out of bounds with, I want to say 15 seconds left or something like that. 15. Jones gets the ball, attacks the rim, makes him pay, goes to the free throw line for an and one and converts in that situation. So like, and there's contributions from not everybody's going to shoot well or a super high percentage every single game, but are they still impacting the game in winning ways, in impactful ways, and everything else that they do on the floor? And I think a lot of guys on the bench did that tonight. Purdue just didn't need it from a scoring standpoint. If they needed it from a scoring standpoint, Miles Colvin's probably getting more run tonight. Like they didn't need it.
Yeah. And I think there is something to talk about. Braden and Edey played 36 minutes and they played off the floor. They were both off the floor for 4 minutes. We are going to talk about that in just a second, but I do want to say, everybody that's in here, we have a lot of people, after a big W, if you could just if you're on YouTube, subscribe, but just hitting the like button really does help us a ton. As we continue to grow, we're able to go to these things. Braggs is in the post-game presser. You can follow us on Twitter at Boilers and Stands for a lot of those updates. But yeah, just a simple thing like that is something that can really, really help us. So we do appreciate everybody tuning in and just kind of, hanging out with us, talking some Purdue hoops. And so, yeah, we'll talk about the Braden Edey off the floor minutes in just a sec. But first, do have to give a shout out to our sponsor.
So we want to thank our sponsor, BJ Rule. And we certainly appreciate he's sponsored quite a few shows. He's a Purdue graduate and a current Lafayette resident. BJ Rule has close to 15 years experience helping buyers, sellers, and real estate investors in Lafayette and surrounding areas. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, give BJ a call or text to set up an appointment to see how he can help you accomplish your goals. Your home will likely be the most expensive purchase of your life. Have the experts with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams on your side and let BJ help you navigate that process. If you'd like to get in touch with BJ, give him a call at 317-345-4600. Again, that's 317-345-4600. And as I've mentioned in previous shows, I've known BJ for an extremely long time through kind of both of our experiences in the livestock industry growing up and raising and selling livestock, and just a really good dude that I would certainly trust to help me either buy or sell a home. So certainly look him up if you have realty needs in the Tippecanoe County or surrounding area.
Yeah, thank you to our sponsor for that. So, I'll bring up the rotation here really quick. And for anybody that doesn't know, this is if you're listening on audio, it's just like a rotation chart for anybody that is watching. If a box is colored in, that means that they played that minute. And so if you look at the first half from the 11 to 9 minutes left, Purdue had both Braden and Zach Edey off the floor. They were a -2 in those 3 minutes, and in the second half there was 1 minute. It was the 10-minute mark in the second half, and Purdue was -4 in that single minute with both Braden and Edey off the floor. I think it's something to talk about because I think it's something I eventually do want to ask Painter of why specifically having both Braden and Edey off the floor. I know we were talking about this offline. You said maybe it's just that Painter likes having them together so much that he wants to play them together as much as possible. But it's been pretty consistent. Like Purdue just struggles with both of them off the floor. This is a game like we're going back to the previous comments of Josh said only 3 players played well. Only 3 players scored well, and now 2 of them are off the floor, and one of them at times can be dependent on the other 2 to get his looks. And so I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if Painter eventually switches that up where he has one of Smith or Edey on the floor at all times. Is it letting Smith just run a lot more pick and roll and just you live with the results? I don't know exactly what the answer is, especially if they're both going to be off the floor, because now that means you have Morton for sure, who's more of a non-shooter. Jones is a streaky shooter, so some games he's going to be elite and it's going to be completely fine. Other games not. And then you have Loyer, Edey, or Colvin is kind of your third spot on the perimeter. And then your interior is most likely first in TKR. Can TKR kind of step up in those minutes and be that go-to guy in the post? We've seen small flashes of it. Maybe that's the answer too. I don't know. It's only 4 minutes, but being -6 in those 4 minutes is something I think worth at least mentioning.
Yeah, I think we've talked about in some of the other games this year, though they've multiple times they've extended the lead throughout the year so far. In the first half, when they went to that rotation, they end up -2 in that little stretch that they had in the first half. In the second half, I guess really where it concerned me is Arizona switches to a zone. Arizona's giving you problems. Arizona's going on a run. I think they'd cut it from 15 to 10, and then they take the 2 points away from the basket interference that they overturn. So they actually went from 13 to 8. So they're making a run, and then you take your 2 best scorers. Well, I guess Fletcher as well this game, but you take 2 of your 3 best scorers off the court. So I think for me, it was just situationally. And I think those, I don't want to say role players, but the players who aren't your primary scorers, I think they kind of feed a little bit off of the momentum of the game too, more so than your guys that are just confident, consistent scorers. So I think in that situation where they're making a run, I just don't know if that's the exact time that you want that rotation in. If you're extending the lead and you toss those guys in there, okay. So if you give up a couple of points, you can call a timeout. You can get some guys in. I just didn't know, I'm not questioning anything, right? I'm not making the $4.5 or $3.5 million, but I didn't know situationally at that time and place that I necessarily loved the choice of having both of them off.
Yeah, it's just tough too because they need to get a couple minutes of rest somewhere, but just a tough spot. I mean, they only sat for a minute in the second half. Like Painter realized quickly. I thought, aside from that decision, I did think Painter was pretty good for the. I thought he was pretty good because the zone, obviously with Morton in, just wasn't working. Like when Arizona went zone with Morton in, it just wasn't working. He gets Morton out of there. And then when they go man and he needs another defender for Jones down the stretch, he puts Morton back in. I would like to see, I think the only thing that's holding me up is just a little bit better movement against the zone, but also they were completely blindsided. So there's a little give and take with that as well. So we've hit on the big 3. We hit on Fletcher, Braden, and Zach, and I'm sure we'll probably hit on them some more because, hey, they combined for 75 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, 9 steals, and a block, it seems like, between those 3. All of them shot over 50%, so it's not like they were chucking. Like, Fletch was 11 for 18, Braden was 9 for 15, and Edey was your most inefficient out of the 3 at 8 for 15. If Edey's your most inefficient out of your 20 points, you have 3 20-point scorers, and Edey's your most inefficient. I think you're doing something pretty well. Do we want to hit on Jones? Obviously, he did not have a good shooting night, and I thought the first half wasn't his best defensively. But was there anything you kind of liked maybe in the second half, especially that, or not, I guess, like what were your thoughts on Jones?
I thought
in general.
the first half I thought was a little tough for him defensively. There was a couple of rotations he was late on, and his guy didn't score, but it got everybody else out of rotation, and Zach had to come over and help, and then they would dump it off to somebody else who'd score real easy at the rim. So I didn't think his first half defensive moments were great. I thought he was much, much better in the second half defensively. A couple of those got called fouls. I really didn't think that one of those two should have been a foul in any way, shape, or form. But he just made life difficult and made it a little bit harder for them to get into their offense at times. And like I said, part of Lance being here is just that guy who has absolutely no conscience, and he hits that big shot. There's a lot of guys when he catches that pass, when we're getting down to those last 15 seconds, who might just hold the ball and not take a chance at making a mistake if he goes to the rim, getting blocked and turning it over, whatever it may be, or dribbling it off your foot, whatever. A lot of guys might just hold that ball in that moment and wait for somebody to come foul him. He didn't do that. He's got no fear. He went to the rim. He makes a shot. He gets fouled. He goes and he hits it. So, there's no two ways to put it. This was not a great Lance Jones game, coming off of one that was probably his worst of the year, but he still contributed in winning time in some big, big, big ways.
Yeah, and there's still a reason he was in the game for a large chunk of that second half. We can pull up the rotation again here. He sat, just those 4 minutes, and then, oh no, I messed this up. He sat the 4 minutes. That's my bad. I definitely messed this up. He sat those first 4 minutes of the second half, and then those last 4 as well. I accidentally put those on Jones, and that should be on Loyer. But yeah, like there's still a reason he played in that large chunk, and it's just because he is fearless. He's the best option. He's the best option Purdue has in combination of one, trying to score the ball, but two, also just being able to defend well. Like we said, like Caleb Love is he's gonna make some shots, and it is what it is. He had 29, 9 of 19 overall, 4 of 9. Boswell only was 6 points, 3 assists. Jones was on for much of the first half, but I think it was just. Yeah, it was just a whatever game. Like, not good shooting, not good in the first half defensively, but I thought he was much better in the second half. And especially when Purdue kind of needed something, he was there. And like you said, he is fearless. He is never going to shy away from a shot. He's never going to shy away from pushing the ball. I think something briefly to mention is, Arizona pressed a couple times, and Purdue really had no problem with it. And
he's vital for that.
Yeah.
Like he is vital to have that second ball handler, and multiple times, he just took it and pushed. Everybody who's watched Purdue, especially last year, but those who are historical Purdue basketball fans know that collective pucker we all get when that 10 seconds is winding down and you're worried about getting across. And for the most part this year, there's been a couple. There's always going to be when anybody presses anybody, but he's just completely changed our ability to handle the press or press action at any point in the game. And a few different times, teams have just gone out of it because they've tried it 3 or 4 different series and are like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. They're not going to get rattled from this anymore. So not something that shows up in the box score, right? Other than the fact that we see fewer turnovers. And I think we end up with 13 tonight. I know Painter likes to see it this day at 10 or less, I think, in general. But nonetheless, had some games where it gets closer to 17 or 18 last year in these similar situations. So I certainly think he impacts it, even though it's kind of a ghost box score. And one thing, Joe, there was a lot said coming into this game about backcourts. And a lot of people giving Braden Smith love in terms of backcourts, but just a lot of the talk kind of about Arizona's backcourt and how much better they were in terms of depth at the backcourt position over Purdue. And really only one guy showed up in the backcourt for Arizona. And I don't know if Purdue players heard any of that chatter leading up to this, but it sure seemed like some guys were playing with a chip on their shoulder and kind of wanted to show that they're more than just Braden and Zach, and backcourt played just incredibly well as a unit, doing their job and racking up points.
Yeah, and I think with the pressure for me, I'm not as concerned about full court pressure at this point, like with Jones. It's the half court pressures where Purdue gets in trouble right now.
Yeah.
They had 13 turnovers. 1, maybe 2 came against the like full court press, and one's not even the press. It was
Braden
just
had the 10-second call.
Yeah, it just didn't dribble across. But
it's obvious.
I'm sorry. I thought. But yeah, I think it's the half court pressure. The length in the zone is kind of what gives the issue. Their length in the man, like Northwestern pressures really far, and it pushes Purdue away. And now it's turnovers because Braden has to force, because Purdue has to force. Edey has to make quicker decisions against longer arms. Everybody does, not just Edey and Braden, but like everybody then has to make quicker decisions against longer arms and just have to try to find the windows. And that's where Purdue, I think, still has. I think that's one of their last things to figure out, and especially with Braden. Didn't have to worry about it today because Arizona doesn't hedge, but that's been my thing is it kind of goes into when teams hedge Braden, when they really push him out on the perimeter, then that's when kind of the turnovers happen. And, that zone specifically today was the one that did it. So we're getting through a lot of the players. I know Braggs is supposed to be joining soon. We can go through maybe a couple of things that he posted on our Twitter at Boilers and Stands from the pressers if we want to talk about that. Fletcher Loyer, I'm playing with the EVO ball. EVO? Whatever. That
Evo.
Doesn't matter if we're outside, inside, red ball, blue ball. Both teams have to play with the same basketball. I think that's just the mindset you're going to get from them, right? Is like, yes, they probably don't like playing with it, and most people in the country don't like playing with it, but they have to, right? That's just how it is.
They're not going to give those answers in season. When we asked those questions last year, kind of in off season, we got some different answers from different people. But I don't. You're not going to hear anybody try to use the ball as an excuse, especially on a night where you shoot incredible. Not going to complain about the ball at all.
So another one from from Coach Painter from the presser, and this, to give the context, Painter sitting between Fletcher Loyer and Braden Smith in this photo. He said, "These guys to the left and right of me weren't ranked high because they aren't extreme athletes. That's what the rankings are about, athletes. So I went the other way, and the other way meaning just looking for skill. Like you said, not athletes, but guys that can play basketball well, that have a high IQ, that are just skilled. And I think that really stands out. Like we've talked about it. Painter is going to get who he wants, who is going to fit his system, and not necessarily who's going to be, the most highlight reel, not even highlight reel, who's going to be the one that quite literally like jumps out of the room the best, or anything like that. It's guys who's fit. Now, I think he's done well with the Jones pickup of, hey, you do have to have some physicality and some athleticism on this team. Heidi and Colvin are both freshmen with that elite upside. First even has it some as more of a big man. But it's just, I think it's more of just, right, he's not focused on that. It's more of he needs it when he needs it, and he'll go and get it. But he's focused on skill. And when I watched Braden Smith's high school film, it was just like this. Like, he's just a dog. That's just as simple as it is. He's a gamer. He's going to make winning plays. He's going to force the issue. He is just going to be a handle for other defenses, or a problem for other defenses, and they're going to have to figure out how to handle him. And a guy like that running this offense, and now you have that coupled with Edey. It's a pretty good recipe for success.
Yeah, and my thing about rankings coming out of high school, I really look at that and feel like that's more an indication of how good of a chance a player has at being impactful and making it to the NBA. It doesn't really tell you the story about how quickly they're going to be able to contribute at the college level. We've seen it this year. We have multiple guys out there who are super highly ranked and just haven't been able to contribute as freshmen on high-level college teams yet because their skill isn't developed. And those guys have skill and they can contribute right away, and they have. We got a celebrity in his house.
Yeah,
what do you know, Braggs?
What
do you know, Braggs?
One Kraig Bowers Jr. just off the press conference.
Yeah.
First appearance in a while, I think. But obviously, you're doing your thing over at CHGO. How does it feel to be back?
This is weird. What is this? I'm not comfortable being on this post-game show. You guys have done such a great job in my absence, and I certainly appreciate the hard work. But yeah, today was a lot of fun. I've only been to 2 games this year, and I'm looking behind me because I saw the guy behind you, Kraig. I'm in a different room. I'm an idiot. But yeah, I've only been to 2 games this year, and at Northwestern, watching them lose, and then coming here to Indy, not really sure how the game was going to play out, but both games March Madness atmospheres, and Kraig can probably speak to it even better, having gone to Canada and seeing them play Alabama, having gone to the Maui Invitational in Hawaii, and just seeing these top caliber teams. And it sounds silly, even with Northwestern losing to Chicago State, as embarrassing as that was for them, and then us to lose to them. At the end of the day, like Craig's pointed out a million times with Northwestern, they play NBA style basketball one-on-one. And when you're playing these kind of talented teams like Arizona today, you get Caleb Love going on a heater. These are the kind of things, and this is what Matt Painter talked about. This is what's going to get you ready for March Madness, is these type of games. Because he pointed out, in the after press conference, we kept chasing him down for questions. And I asked him, like, the adjustment of going into Big Ten play for the next 2 months and then coming back to these type of teams come March. And he said, at the end of the day, you got to be able to put up 99 points like we did against Tennessee in the Elite Eight. We, as in he said that we, but we're we here at Boilers in the Stands. But, and this is the kind of talent, and this is what it's going to take to win in March. Everybody wants to unlock the Da Vinci Code of how Purdue can get to the Final Four. It's playing in games like this and playing the way they did. Fletcher Loyer and Braden Smith specifically, showing the kind of confidence they did. I really feel like Braden Smith is just getting into the next level of his bag. The fadeaways, the pivots and off the glass, and he's just doing a lot of different things, shooting with confidence. And it's that is what it's going to take, is the kind of confidence that Fletcher Loyer and Braden Smith are exuding. They both said, Fletcher Loyer said, what we want to do is inspire this team to be great. And you feel that with these guys and the attitude in which they approach this team and these games. And when they knock down a shot, you can feel the energy and the confidence they have. So, it's good. The other thing that really stood out, and I'm sure you guys have already talked about it, is my head of content at CHGO is in here trolling, Kevin Kaduk, a Wisconsin fan too. Wisconsin had a tougher time against Arizona. Thank you very much, Kevin. The other thing, and I'm sure you guys have pointed this out, is Zach Edey leading the team in assists. That's stood out. I don't know if you guys have touched on this yet.
We didn't say it's. I talked a little bit about the Edey assists. I don't think I specified though that he led the team with assists. Yeah, he led the team with 5, Jones with 4, Fletch with 3, Gills with 3, then a few players with 2. Yeah, no, you can definitely go on about that.
So when you talk about what they need to do to adjust to losing to Northwestern, that specifically is a good sign, because Zach, how many turnovers did he have in that game? And it's about, and this is the other thing Matt Painter talked about, is the hardest thing to teach players is to take what the defense gives them, because they're all such great scorers and great players coming out of high school that they just want to score the basketball. And it's about taking what the defense gives them. Trey Kaufman-Renn talked about this in the post presser. He was in the hallway and talked about knowing when to go up with it when he's got one-on-one and when to kick it back out. And he said, well, when I'm on the court with Zach, I got to make sure I'm making the best decision possible, because we're trying to get it to our best players. If he's not on and I'm the guy in the post, then maybe that's the time that I need to go up with it. So this kind of decision-making are the things that are going to get them over the top come March. Long way to go until then.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of good points there. Yeah, just it's you can have a little bit of everything. You like, this is a team that's just more versatile than last year, I think, too, and it's going to show. Like, you can have multiple different guys go off in any given night. Obviously, it's Fletch tonight, and Braden and Edey kind of do their thing pretty much always at this point. Curious, Braggs, with you were in the press conference. Did Tommy Lloyd say anything? Did he get asked about, like, just whether it be the Braden Smith Fletcher Loyer duo, or what's going up against Edey? Just anything like that? Was he kind of asked about in terms of more of a Purdue sense?
He didn't take too many questions. Most of them came from an Arizona perspective, asking about Caleb Love. But he did mention at one point talking about Braden and Fletcher Loyer getting tough press for the way they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. And he said, I don't know anything about any of that stuff. All I know is these guys are winners. And when we come to March, I don't know what's going to happen with Purdue. I don't know what's going to happen with Arizona, but he felt that both teams are put in the best position to win in March with the teams they have. He said that the one thing he's alluded to, but he was pretty generic with his answer, was he said they tried a few different things and none of them worked, and I think he was at one point he talked about, well, we went to a zone, a 3-2 zone, which they don't run that often. He said that they were having trouble staying with Purdue man-to-man, and he gave Braden Smith a lot of credit for breaking them down and being the reason that they had to make an adjustment in the second half.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we didn't touch on with this when we talked about is, like, eventually they did just go more high ball screens and pick and roll, and now Braden can get he's able to just get enough room to facilitate, and I assume that's kind of like what you alluded to, why they had to come out of it eventually, and it's just another testament to what Braden Smith can do. Kraig, just kind of catch you up to speed. We've hit on Braden, Fletch, Edey, Lance. We've hit on mainly all the key players. Kraig, is there another player that we haven't really hit on yet that you kind of want to?
I mean, I think you already brought up TKR a little bit, right? But I thought,
as much as I give him a lot of criticism, because I've been worried about how he's going to fit, I thought he played great today.
Yeah, I thought in the minutes that he got, now there was some things defensively that he obviously struggled against Johnson quite a bit to start the game, but what he contributed on the offensive end in terms of offensive rebounds, just being active in that second half. And Painter seemed to do this multiple times in the second half, make a point to get TKR in the post. And then he'll take 2 or 3 shots, maybe hits 1, maybe hits 2 out of those 3. And then right after that, they go back to Zach. And it's like they've got the defense off balance a little bit about, when do I go double and all that type of stuff. And they did that again out of the gate today. Loyer hits that shot, and then they feed TKR a couple of times in a row in the post. And then the next time they kick it back out, swing back right down to Zach, and Zach gets an easy one off of that. So I thought TKR was actually, other than defensively against Johnson, which was a tough matchup for most everybody other than First tonight, thought he gave some really good minutes.
Yeah, no, he was really good on the glass. Like I've said, it was some big boards there. 2 assists to go along with it. Only 3 shots. And the one he was 2 for 3. The one that he missed was a very makeable shot, kind of in the low post area. Didn't force. Obviously, didn't play a ton of minutes because of that defensive issue. But you just it's Purdue's going to rotate the 3 people at the 4 right now, and TKR, First, and Gillis, and you just hope each can give you 10 to 15 productive minutes per night, and somebody's probably going to have to end up playing 20, just kind of depending on the night. And it's a good and a bad thing that there's so much depth, because now you have 3 guys with 3 legitimate different skill sets. All 3 bring different things, right? And we've been over that a bunch. But it's also a little bit of a bad thing of Painter has to put that puzzle piece together, right? Every single game, he has to figure out, okay, who do I need to go to down the stretch? What do we need from our offense? What do we need from our defense? And what type of player is going to give me that? Not dissimilar to the problem he has at I don't know if it's a problem, but the dilemma he has at the 3 of who's going to be the best wing. When Fletch is scoring 27 and has 4 steals, I think that one kind of shores up that area there. But it's a good and a bad thing. Painter's going to have some decisions to make, and whether he keeps rolling with this TKR Edey combo.
And I think he starts to get a feel, or he has started to get a feel now before getting into the game, of which of those 3s is going to be the better matchup for that game. Now, Loyer blows that all up if he's on a heater, right? But then you ride with it. But I think he's got a relatively decent sense at this point of all right, I may need Morton defensively this game, or this might be some Cam Heide minutes game, or if Loyer's not hitting, the options probably go to Colvin for 10 to 15 minutes, because he gives a little bit more shooting and a little bit more mid-range game than what those other 2 guys can, obviously. So, I think he's got a formula. He's got an equation. It's just there's outside variables. So I'm bringing this to the statistics mind of Joe Jackson. It depends on what those outside variables are in any given game, which way that equation is going to lead him to in terms of who he plays.
Yep.
One of the things that really stood out to me on their run that they went on, I think Purdue went up 17 and then they go on a 13-0 run, is because Braden and Fletcher were playing so well, that they basically were just trying to make sure they didn't beat them, and they were allowing Zach to take the shot. Now they were trying to get him out as far away from the hoop on those attempts as they could, but that's kind of what helped spark their run. And normally it's the other way around, where they're denying Edey as much they can and letting everyone else beat you. But this time it was the opposite. They were like, okay, we got to hold the perimeter in check, and we're just going to live with whatever results come from Zach, because they were trading threes for twos at one point, and so they reversed it. And I think that's one of the first times since the rise of the Zach Edey dominance that I've seen a team say, we're gonna deny the perimeter and take what Zach gives us against us.
Yeah, no, it like you said, it's a little weird because that's just not what we're used to. Edey is tied for second in shot attempts. Fletcher has 18. Braden and Edey both have 15. It goes back to that zone. Yeah, Edey has some good looks, and they just don't fall. I think, like I said, Ballo, I think, did a good job of pushing them out, but pushing him out of the paint a little bit more than what he probably wants. But still, at the end, he knocks down some free throws. He gets a couple buckets, and he does Zach Edey things, putting up 22, 9, and 5 in a game that we're like, yeah, he was fine. It was solid. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great game.
One thing about this game and about this season in general, and people who've been Purdue fans for as long as I have, who've been around a little bit longer than the two of you regarding this, will know what I'm talking about is, very often anytime you start to see that lead get cut into, is every Purdue fan starts to get just that gut feeling of like, oh, crap, here we go. I never feel that with this team. Even in the Northwestern game, like I thought, okay, they're still going to figure out a way to pull it out. When we were down by Bama, I was texting somebody during that game, and I said, I was never worried in that game because you saw the fouls racking up. You knew where it was going to go. You knew Purdue was going to end up getting to the foul line. They were going to start losing guys, and just there's a different feeling with this team of we've got, obviously Zach is going to be Zach. Braden is generally going to give you really, really good things 95% of the time, right? But we've seen in some close games where Lance Jones has blown that open or led the quick comeback. We've seen Fletcher Loyer do it. There's just a confidence in the ability of this team's to handle pressure and to get situational scoring at different spots. There's a difference between scoring and situational scoring. Can I get a bucket in a big moment and just feel like, by and large, this team is different in that way than a lot of teams we've seen over the last, decade from Purdue.
No, I'm with you there. I think, like, even today, the league gets cut to 4, and it's not Purdue lost. It's okay, they're in a ball game now, but it's never okay, this one, this is just gonna slip and they're gonna keep spiraling. I think you're spot on there.
Another part of that too is that Matt Painter doesn't really call that many timeouts when the floodgates are opening, and I'm always like, my instinct when they give up 3 buckets in a row is, you're either yelling it at the TV or you're putting your head like timeout, and you look over at Matt and he's going like this, slow down, and so that shows the coach's confidence he has in these guys to take that moment and not panic and call timeout, start hollering at these guys, that they'll be able to compose themselves in the moment. It just shows the level of maturity that I think this team has and the confidence that Painter has in them. You guys getting booted?
No. We were just discussing something real quick. We have been going.
We were talking traffic patterns and related to time.
Tell Jeff Goodman he can hop on if he's near you. But
he already left.
Yeah. So no, I think overall, watching this team over the last 3 years, what are they now? 33 straight. How many?
33. 33.
Yep. Non-conference games. I think they're 35-3 if you include the 2 games against Texas and whoever they beat in the round of 16 when they were in Milwaukee. So you're talking about the level of teams they've beaten: Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, Marquette twice, Gonzaga twice. The list goes on and on. Tennessee, Villanova. That this is a run they're going on here these last 3 years that Purdue fans should really appreciate. And yes, they've taken some tough losses in March, but this is a program that any other school would take this kind of run, and it's just about getting over that hump. But the more you watch them playing games like this, the more confident I am that they'll eventually, slay that dragon.
Yeah, and then excuse me, it was kind of mentioned in the comments with like Greg Waddell, like he mentioned that the non-conference Purdue had is tougher than any tournament run they would have to face, and so Purdue has to do it. But it's just a testament that like they have all the talent in the world. They have the talent to be the best team in the country every given night. You just got to put it together at the right time, and that's part of the March Madness. What makes it so fun is you can be the best team in the country, and you just got to do it at the right time as well. Looking back, the last non-conference loss was that Miami game in 2021. For anybody that remembers, Purdue was up pretty big, if I remember correctly, and then just couldn't score for a while. Quickly going back through, because that was the year after COVID, it's like no real fans. First game of the year is against Liberty, and Zach Edey was the Ken Pom MVP of that game, 19 points and 5 rebounds in his very first college game.
Yeah. And Michael Van Meter's asking, maybe you said it, what is the non-conference streak that Purdue's at now? 33 straight wins non-conference the last 3 years. And Arizona, I think, was
non-conference regular season.
Yep. Correct. And Arizona, I believe, was second at 18. So now they fall back down. So it's exciting stuff. Today was an unbelievable atmosphere. I mean, they played here last year against Davidson, and it was a good atmosphere. But today, 1 versus 3 in the country, the place was packed, going crazy. There was a decent number of Arizona fans, but they were trounced by the Purdue fans. This was a home game, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really fun environment to be a part of. And I'm looking forward to Big Ten play now. I know we got one in between. Not looking over anybody. Sorry, Jacksonville State or whoever we have on Thursday.
Jacksonville and then Eastern Kentucky the following Friday.
I apologize to Eastern Kentucky as well.
But yeah, no, I think that's something to like. The fans were great. They really were. This was a sold out crowd. We already kind of mentioned it. You're not going to get too many better atmospheres, especially in obviously it's a Purdue semi-home game, but like in a neutral game, you're just not going to get many better atmospheres, I think, than what's there tonight. So we've gone hour 7. Do we have anything, Braggs? Anything?
No, you guys are good. I'm glad I could.
That's all I got, man.
Thank you for letting me join you guys here today for a game and a post-game show. This is quite an experience. This is a privilege and an honor to be with you guys, the best in the business covering the Purdue Boilermakers.
We do special guest Greg Braggs.
we might have to make this a reoccurring thing, having Braggs on.
We're gonna try.
Yeah.
But hey, I can't promise. My January might get busy. The Bears are still on a playoff hunt, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not gonna be busy, Greg.
There was a Craig. I'm sorry, I do have to bring this up because I saved this comment for you. This was from Avery A while ago. Says this W calls for some Taco Bell.
Hell yeah, it does. Hell yeah. Normally I use Taco Bell for my depression meals, but it can be a celebratory meal. Chicken quesadilla. Just get some extra sauce with it. So,
some extra sauce.
I always get extra sauce with my chicken quesadilla. That's
gotcha.
That's next level fat for me. Okay.
All right, man. All right, let's blow this.
I did ask about the Evo ball too. I'm sorry.
It's a good call.
Fletcher and Braden both said. Fletcher said it a little more strongly. He said, red ball, blue ball, outside, inside. Both teams got to play with it. Because that was a big concern coming in. Like, how would they play in the statistics? Our guy Dave Kovich has put out there certainly show that there is an effect. But today, didn't seem like they were bothered by it. So that's a step in the right direction as far as getting comfortable with that basketball as well.
Yeah, for sure. And especially Fletch, Braden. It's a good sign going forward. So we will be back this upcoming Thursday against Jacksonville. as a 6:30 Eastern time tip at Mackey. Be live back here post game. I don't know exactly who all will be on or what's going to happen, but we will have a show 100% guaranteed. We appreciate everybody tuning in, just allowing us to be able to go to these games, do these types of things. You can follow us on Twitter at Boilers and Stands. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe. Just going to help us continue to grow. On audio, we are on Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next one.
That was way better than my Midwestern goodbye. Ladies, later, guys. Boiler up.